still about 30% of our students are taking advantage of the CSUs or the UCs. But almost 30% of our students are choosing to go the community college route first. And notice this is what they've chosen. This isn't what they've are eligible for. So these students maybe have chosen the community college route to save money, to be able to maybe they're undecided in their major. And they've chosen that first before transferring on. About 20% choose private colleges, more and more looking at out-of-state public schools. And they're finding with programs like something called the WUI, the Western Undergraduate Exchange, that they can get some pretty good tuition rates on out-of-state publics, excuse me. And then, they're looking at other places as well. So I want to talk about each of the systems, the larger college systems now for a few minutes. And I'm going to start with the easiest to apply to the most difficult to apply to. So first we have the community colleges. And there's no way you can read this slide because there's a lot of really tiny print. But you will see that there are many community colleges in California. And the ones in our area are really good. There's some great options for students. They have a very easy application. Basically, you apply and you are in. there's no other requirements. Once a student graduates, our graduates can apply, well, they can apply early, but they can join as soon as they've finished at Los Gatos. The typical timeline for applying to a community college is starts in March and goes to May if they want to get help with their application, with choosing classes for the fall, if they want to get priority enrollment. And also at West Valley, if they apply during that time period and fill out another form, they basically get free tuition for up to 2 years, which is awesome. But students can apply through August. So this is a great opportunity if students still aren't sure what they're going to do. They can apply to other colleges in the fall, and then they can see their results of where they got in and what financial aid packages they received, and then they can apply for community college if they want starting in later spring. There's different things students can do at a community college. They can join a career program. So if they just want to learn how to, say, be a computer tech, that would be a great thing to learn at a community college. Or they can do the transfer program where they do about 2 years at a community college doing all of their undergraduate work, and then they transfer into to a four-year college. And many of our UCs and CSUs and private colleges in California have guaranteed transfer programs with a lot of our community colleges. So it's a great way to typically have smaller class sizes as a freshman and a sophomore, maybe have free tuition, maybe get your classes a little bit easier, and then transfer to a school that maybe when they were a senior, they wouldn't have gotten into, like a UCLA or a USC. Anyway, so that's a community college option. Sorry, I keep going backward. The next option is the CSU system. We show them next because they're the next simplest application. There's 23 California state universities in California. I've given you some examples. Their application is, it takes a few minutes, or a few hours, but it's pretty simple in what they need. Students can apply starting in October, and they don't turn it on until October, but they can apply from October to November 30th. To get into a CSU, students need to complete something called A through G coursework. And if you don't know what A through G is, that's basically college prep subject areas. So for whatever reason, the CSUs and the UCs have assigned them letters, different subject areas. So history is A, English is B, math is C. On down the line, you got science, world language, visual performing art, and then G is other college prep electives. So students need to complete a certain amount of classes in each one of those subject areas. We match at Los Gatos High School our graduation requirements basically almost exactly with the A through G requirements of a CSU and a UC, because so many of our students will go there to one of those two systems. So know that if your student is on track for graduation, chances are they've got what they need also to apply to a CSU or a UC. And we're working with them every year. We've been checking with them to make sure that they're meeting their goals. The biggest difference is world language, because we don't require world language for graduation, but students do need a world up to a level 2 of a world language for most four-year colleges out there. So the CSUs are really great for getting students. Their goal is to get students right into a job after graduation. So students are going to learn really hands-on they're going to have hands-on types of classes. They're going to have majors that really get them working in whatever field they want to get into. So you'll see business majors, you'll see graphic design, you'll see engineering, those types of majors. They're not as research oriented. So their professors are often actually working in the field. At San Jose State, they probably have several professors that are from Cisco or from Google or from Apple teaching their classes. So anyway, the entrance requirements are course rigor, that students have completed some basic A through G coursework with a grade of a C- or higher. They're looking at students' GPA, and they were looking at SAT and ACT scores. However, this year, the CSUs are going SAT, ACT blind, meaning they won't even take a score if your students had them, which is great news for all of our students in California that have been unable to get an SAT or an ACT taken. And then they don't accept transcripts. Students self-report their grades, and they only will take a transcript once a student has gotten into a college and is going to go there. Then they ask for that. So that's the CSU system. Then getting a little more complicated is the UC system. The UC system is University of California. There's 9 undergraduate campuses, and then there's also a graduate campus in San Francisco. These campuses are more research-based. And they tend to have a little bit bigger class sizes. Students can go directly into career, absolutely, but a lot of them also may go on to graduate school of some kind. They require a little bit more because they are a little more research focused, theory focused. So they're going to require, again, that A through G coursework with a grade of a C- or higher. They're going to look at the student's overall GPA. Students will self-report their grades. They don't need to submit a transcript, but they will have what are called personal insight questions. They're like student essays that they're going to write about themselves. So they're going to be looking at that as well. So that application gets a little more complicated. They'll take applications. One can submit them between November 1st and November 30th, but that application is on now. So if your student wants to go on and start working on it, they can. And I didn't say this before, but all of the CSUs use one application. And then you just pick which schools you want to send it to. All of the UCs use one application. So far, if your student is applying to some CSUs and some UCs, they only need to fill out 2 applications total. Their version of what they're doing with the SAT and the ACT is they came out officially saying that they're going to make those tests optional. But I was just in a virtual conference this morning, UC conference this morning, and Berkeley said very clearly, we are not using the SAT or the ACT in any part of our review. They said even with subject tests and areas that in majors like engineering, where we suggest subject tests, we know those are hard for students, so we'll even look at things like AP scores or coursework for those particular majors. UC Irvine came out and said basically the same thing. A few other schools said they were still deciding, like University of UC Santa Barbara. So as soon as we find out from the other UCs whether they're going to be SAT, ACT blind, we'll be letting you guys know. through email and through other ways. But that's good news also. So it looks like it may be two of the biggest college systems that our students are looking at are not even going to look at SATs this year. Okay, so that's the UCs. So then we move on to out-of-state public colleges. These require, again, a little bit more, perhaps. This is a picture of University of Washington's campus. We had a chance to go up there and tour that a few years ago, which is a lot of fun. There's a whole lot of really good out-of-state public colleges that our students apply to. They all have their own requirements. So your student is going to have to go on their websites and look and see what they want specifically. Fortunately, a lot of out-of-state publics and a lot of private colleges use something called the Common Application. And I think probably a lot of you have heard that by now. That is one common application that a student can fill out and then shoot it out to many different colleges. It's awesome. That's also open right now. So if your student hasn't started that application, they can just Google Common Application and they'll be able to log in and get started. Some out-of-state publics have their own application, and so then it's a different one. But potentially, your students can now fill out one application for the CSUs, one for the UCs, and one for every place else they want to apply, in theory. But out-of-state public colleges are often they're going to look at GPA, they're going to look at course rigor, and pretty much every college out there now has reported that they're going to go test optional for this year for our students. But again, I would check their website to see what that means, because test optional can mean different things for different colleges. What we're finding that it usually means is we're going to review the student without considering the SAT or the ACT. And if they want to send us a score, we'll just use that to enhance just give us one more piece of information about the student. They often also, out-of-state publics also often look for essays, but not all the time. They may want a counselor recommendation or they may want a teacher recommendation. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So then you got your private colleges. This is a picture of Princeton, where Tamara and I were able to go last summer before last, when we could still go out in public. So we went to a lot of New Jersey colleges, which was awesome. And Princeton was one of them. So very similar to out-of-state publics, each one has their own rules about eligibility. And so your student's going to want to look at each one of those individually on their websites, but they're going to be looking at GPA, they're going to be looking at course rigor. Again, test scores, most are optional. They're going to look at your students' essays. They're going to want a counselor letter or a teacher letter of recommendation. So I do want to talk briefly about the SAT and the ACT. I already said this a few times, but most colleges are going test optional. So please don't worry if your student hasn't had a chance to take one of the tests, or if they had and they're not happy with the score. Los Gatos High School and Saratoga High School really want to have the opportunity for you guys to take the test if we can. So both schools are offering a tentative test date on Wednesday, October 14th. It'll be in the morning. I think every email's gone out to everyone. You've probably seen it. If your student's interested, go ahead and sign up. But I'm going to be really strongly emphasize the tentative because that's based on if we get enough parent volunteers. And it can't be senior parents because it can't be a parent of a kid that's taking the test. So it has to be, we're hoping the junior parents will be willing to do it because they all need volunteers for the PSAT, and we're hoping that you guys will all volunteer to help out with that. And then they can all volunteer to help out with you guys for your students on the SAT. If, and there's a big if, the county lets us do this, and they could change things could change up to the day before, we don't know. But if the county lets us do this, we can only have 12 kids in a room. So we've got a class of 550-ish, 540. If you divide that by, 12, we need like all hands on deck for this. We just need a lot of volunteers, and it can't just be you show up that morning. I mean, they need to be fingerprinted. They need to have TB tests. So there's a lot of ifs that are happening. But if we can make it happen, we're going to. So sign up now if you want. But again, remember, don't stress if your student doesn't get this test. If you don't have a test score, don't worry. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Parks, Tamara. Do you want me to stop sharing and you can share yours?
Sorry, the story of our lives now. I wanted to start out talking a little bit about what we're doing right now to help your students. A lot of information was given, a lot of great advice. We've also done the webinars with students and parents going over this a couple of times, and it's on a video, but we still know that it's confusing and complicated. And so right now we're in the process of meeting with every single student, and it's a check-in. And what we're doing is reviewing their transcript with them and making sure that they are on track for whatever their goals are after high school. And so at that meeting, we'll be sharing some information here on this planning sheet. You can see it a little bit, but we're sending those to every student along with a nice clean copy of their transcript. And so we do need your help a little bit, because we did a video, and typically we would do this by going to all the government and econ classes and just pulling students out one at a time by counselor. And we hit every single student without missing anyone. Right now, in these times, it's a little bit difficult. So what we did was we did a video, explained that we need to meet with them and go over everything. And then we asked them to sign up for an appointment with us and gave them the link to the calendar. And many are. We started our meetings yesterday, and I had a full day yesterday and a full day today. But just ask your student, oh, by the way, have you made an appointment with your counselor for this week or next week? So that you can do that transcript check and goal setting. And if they haven't, then they'll be able to make the appointment. That would help us a lot. And so at that meeting, we're also finding out where they are in this process. If they are applying to colleges, we want to know, what questions do they have? What help might they need? Where are they with gathering all these materials? Because we know that it can feel a little bit daunting. So we just want to let you know what we're doing at this point. So for a letter of recommendation, this is the Los Gatos High School process. And we use our own process because we find that we need a way to manage all of our work between the counselors who have to write a letter for each student and the teachers who many write, up to 50 letters for students. And we want to make sure that those letters are as personal as they can be and as reflective of the students as they can possibly be. So basically, the letter of recommendation request kit, the big things are to match their Common App account with their Naviance account, and so that we can kind of communicate back and forth between Naviance and the Common App. So our counselor recommendation will include information from the parent with a parent statement, information that the student has reported to us about themselves, and then students have the opportunity to get faculty feedback. And so that is different from a letter of recommendation in that students just seek 2 teachers who will email us a few instances of or examples of that student's character or effort in class and that sort of thing. And nobody else sees it except the counselor. We just use that for our letter of recommendation to get some additional information. The other thing within the letter of recommendation request kit is the information that the teachers will need to write the letter for students. And so those are the major components, and all of the steps are in Canvas. We've moved this online this year for the first time out of necessity. And it's all in Canvas in the class of 2021 folder. So we put all the steps in Canvas in a very linear fashion. And so I was talking to students today and just asking them, getting feedback on how they're viewing it. And, you know, most of them say that when they first look at it, it's daunting because it's all these things that they just perceive like, oh, all these things I have to do. But if they look at it as just a step-by-step process and just go like only focus on that first step, which is just an overview, like get yourself comfortable with the process, and then go to the second step. You know, everything is laid out very clearly and very carefully. And as students get to that point, and I have several students who are already finished with everything. And so they are using it and they're finding it user-friendly, which is great. So any questions that come up, they can always contact their counselor, of course. So for students who are planning on applying early action or early decision, and those are primarily the private schools would offer that, some out-of-state public schools. For those students, their application deadline is going to be November 1st, but we need all of our information by September 13th so that we can kind of figure out how many letters we have to write before the regular letters come due. That is a Sunday. So what we're asking is that students complete all of the steps of the letter of recommendation request kit by that Sunday. And then the following week, they'll set up an appointment with us and we'll go over those pieces of information with them and just make sure that we have everything that we need to write a good letter. Similarly, if a student is applying a regular decision, those are usually, the application themselves are usually due anywhere from January 1st all the way to February, and some rolling, which means that they'll take it until they're full. Those letter of recommendation kits should be completed by Sunday, November 8th, and then we'll go through the same process. So for students who are applying early, they can just complete everything that they need for the teachers and for the counselor letter, and then kind of turn that in, so to speak. And they would just list the schools in Naviance that they want to apply early to, because some students don't know right now how many schools they're going to apply to, and that's okay. They would just need to then keep adding the other schools to Naviance and letting their counselor know so that we can send our information to all those other schools. So again, everything is in Canvas right now. In that class of 2021 folder, it's accessible to parents and students. We also have information on the guidance pages of the Los Gatos High School website. We have our own page. We just launched a calendar that's on the front page of the guidance website. And we're putting in guidance related activities and general information, you know, we'll put in there when the grading period ends and that sort of thing. But a lot of the information for seniors is embedded directly into the letter of recommendation folder, or excuse me, the class of 2021 folder within the letter of recommendation kit module. And within that module, we have some handouts that we highly recommend students use. Some of them have key dates. There's a handout in there with all of the systems really neatly laid out and what each system needs in terms of a transcript or a letter of recommendation and that sort of thing. So go through those handouts. We also emailed them home. This is one of our favorites. It's an application tracking form. And this is just a spreadsheet, and we make it available to students, but most students tend to make their own after they see the idea. But it helps students stay organized. Every time they or as they are applying, they can list the colleges on this form, and it helps them see how many essays they're going to need to write total, when all the due dates are, and what other additional requirements each school may have. And then what I really like about it too is that at the far right side, you can see that there's a place for the student to write in the portal information, their login and password. And what happens is that a student will submit their application, and as long as the student submits the application before the deadline, all is great. The counselor and the teachers, they submit their portion of the application separately and electronically. And so some students think they're going to get the letter back and have to submit everything. So students do not have to wait at all to submit their application until they get their letter from their teachers and counselors. As soon as they hit submit on their application, it's going to go through a little process at each college, and then they're going to get an email back from those colleges that say, we received your application, thank you. Here's how you're going to find out all the updates to your application. And here's your login and your password. And it's called a portal. And students often forget their login and password to each school. And so they're hesitant to go in and check it. So write it down, have everything right in front of you. This is a really great organizational tool. And then they can go into that portal and say, oh yes, okay, they've got my application. They have my teacher letter. They have my counselor letter. Everything's done. Oh gosh, it seems like they don't have this yet. I wonder what's going on. Now, schools need a little bit of time to keep up with all of this, but this is a really great organizational tool for that. Where should your students be right now? You know, it would be great if they have a working list of colleges that they'd be happy to attend, and several in each category. We talk about the 3 different categories being a school that they would probably get into. And so in Naviance, that looks like they're usually, their GPA would be above the typical admit. That's a probable school. And then some schools that are targets, and that would mean that they're right in some students who get into that school have a higher GPA, some students have a lower, so they're right in line for that. And then they have the long shot category, the stretch schools. And there are an awful lot of schools that are stretch schools for every student, regardless of their GPA, regardless of everything they've done. So I think that's important for everybody to remember. So the key word here is just colleges that they would be happy to attend. So some students will say that they want to have something as a safety school, and I think that's a great idea. Having a couple of schools there or 3 schools that you are pretty sure you'll get into is important. But they want to make sure that those still are going to be schools that they're happy to go to. So if they know, for example, that they don't want to be in a particular locale, but they know there's a school there that they can get into, if they really don't want to go there, they should put it on. Don't go through that process. So, do the research, have the students do the research so that they know they'll be happy where they go. 98.9% of students, wherever they go, regardless of where that school was on their list, because students make big changes right up until May when they're figuring out where they want to go to. And so, they change their mind. What used to be a safety school is now what they really want to, where they really want to be. And it seems like 98% of them end up happy. Wherever they go, they're happy. If not, just as Ms. Cochran was saying, you can transfer. Worst case scenario. Okay. We hope that right now and in the past, students have been exploring colleges through their virtual tours and our college rep visits. The college rep visits will take place throughout the fall, all the way through, I think they're booking up right now, all the way through Thanksgiving. The virtual tours that colleges have are very well done. Students and parents have had very good responses when they've done these tours. Another thing is the school tracks students if they do that, if they are on a tour, and some of the private schools use that data as one of their criteria for admissions. They want to make sure that the students know where they're going. So have you demonstrated interest by going to one of these tours so that you know what the school is all about? So that's an important thing to do. Our college rep visits are also important. These are the people who, for almost every school, will actually be reading these applications. The reps are regional, and so the ones who come to our school are in charge of our school, and they'll be the ones to read those applications. So going to those college rep visits that take place on Wednesdays virtually is going to be really helpful. You can ask questions. You can get to know the rep, and it's a very important step to take. The college visits are listed in Naviance. Those are going to change often. And so you'll just want to go back in. If you want to see the entire list of every rep who is coming, it's in Naviance under colleges and college visits. It's really easy if students go into Naviance, click on colleges, and then click the heart button or the like button, and then they will get an email when the rep is going to be there. and on it, they can then go in and sign up very easily. So 2 ways to find out that information. So just a review, and again, all this information is on a handout that's in a table and really easy to read, but the community college, all they need is an application. It's easy, do it in the spring. Sometimes students apply to all kinds of schools. They get their results, they get admitted to all these schools, and then they go, you know what, I think I'm gonna do the community college. It's always open to them. The CSU, similar, it's just an application process. The UC, just an application, but also for personal insight responses. Those are very short essays, sort of like an interview. It would be more like an oral conversation. SAT scores, optional and or blind entirely, depending on the school. The out-of-state public schools, these requirements are going to vary, but basically the student needs to submit the application, the scores, if that school needs scores, most are optional, a transcript, and they may or may not need a recommendation from a teacher and or a counselor. So they'll really need to check some websites to make sure they know what is needed from each of these schools. The private schools, the requirements will vary, but it's an application, it's essays, more than one usually. Most of the time the SAT scores are going to be optional right now, and then a transcript and recommendations, all which are submitted by the teacher and the counselor directly to the school electronically. We're partners in this, and we need to be more than ever right now. So please do reach out if you have questions. And we do encourage your feedback on the letter recommendation process that's in Canvas so that we can continue to make it even better. You know who we are, how to reach us. And this is Mrs. Rector. She's in our College and Career Center. She is at school or at home and available for meetings. So she can help students with the college research, with scholarship information, with matching and searching for those schools, creating the very nice tailored list for students. And she also is in charge of the college admissions rep, the visits on our campus. So she's a wealth of information. She personally travels to all the schools. So she has really firsthand knowledge of these campuses and what they're all about. And she was open to your students last year in their second semester of their junior year. Students would need to make an appointment with her, and she's available for them again for a second appointment or that first appointment if she didn't get to see them last year. And all they need to do is email her and ask for an appointment, and she'll take it from there. Additional support, we'll have a FAFSA or a financial aid workshops later this fall. And then throughout the application season, the counselors will be doing application help workshops where we can help with the Common App, the UC application, the CSU applications, and we can just kind of, typically we have students come in and work on the application so that we can see exactly what they're doing. This year it'll be a little bit different, but we'll figure something out so that we can see their screen and help them if they're stumped. So those will be announced. And I'm going to turn it back over to Mrs. Cochran.
Let me remember to unmute myself. Yes, I just want to end with a slide about how parents can help. Really, the key thing, and we've said it a few times and we'll say it again, is if you could let go of your own fears and concerns and questions, at least when you're talking to your students, and just present a calm presence. The calmer we all are, the calmer they will be. And we need to really help them at this point, realize that this is manageable, that it's going to be okay, and that they're going to find a good place after they leave our school. They've gotten a great education here, and they're going to be more than prepared for whatever college they end up at. But at the same time, that leads to bullet number 2. Remember, they are going to be leaving all of us, and my own kid too. They're going to be leaving us in just a few short months. So while we encourage you to stay involved with your students' life and kind of, support them as they're going through this application process and they're going through their senior year, we also really need to help prepare them to be individual functioning adults, independent adults, because pretty quickly they're going to maybe be in their own dorm in another town and need to know how to, cook and clean and manage it, their bank accounts and all of those types of things. So the more we can help them prepare now, the better place that they're going to be in next fall when they're off someplace else. Have honest discussions with them. Things have changed. We all know that. Your finances may have changed. Your view or your family's view of safety may have changed. That may change the types of colleges that your students can apply to and end up going to. So you need to have honest discussions up front, really about finances, because I hate to have them get into their dream college and then you guys find out that, as a family, you can't afford it or something. So have those discussions up front so there's no surprises down the line. Trust in the process. And again, this year more than ever, let's respect the privacy of others, because families are going to have to make decisions that maybe they wouldn't have made last year. And we want everyone to feel good about the choices that they've made. And we can do that best by respecting each other's privacy. And not saying, "Hey, I got into this college. Where'd you get into?" Let's leave that to ourselves. So it'll all be fine. We want to keep saying that, and we're going to keep saying it. But things will be okay, and we're going to be here with you and your student along the way. So at this point, Tamara, you want to go to the last slide? I've seen a few questions come in, and I know that Lewis and Rory have been kind of compiling them. There's been several around certain subject areas. So do you want to read a few of them off for us? And we say this goes till 7. We'll try to answer most of these questions. If we miss some, we can always follow up by an email. So anyway, why don't you go ahead and read off some of the group ones?
Yeah, Casey, I'm going to go ahead and start. The first one, just trying to lump some of the test score questions together. We put it as, what is your advice for those who have not tested and may not be able to? So how do they, what do they do for their applications, or how do they approach their applications to make sure that they get the best read possible and put their best foot forward?
Mm-hmm. So this topic came up a lot in the UC conference that I was sitting in this morning. Other counselors were asking the colleges, well, what are you looking at if you can't look at SAT scores? And they were very clear that, SAT scores are helpful, but the classes your student has taken are also really helpful to see, and the grades that they've earned in those classes, and the course rigor that your student has taken. So if they're applying for engineering program and they've taken a bunch of science classes or AP science classes, well, then they're probably going to be pretty prepared for their program. So colleges most of them already do a comprehensive review. This is not something different. And that means that they're looking at the whole student. So they're looking at, again, their classes they've taken, the grades they've earned, how they've matured. Have they taken harder classes and more classes maybe as time goes on, and more rigorous classes, or their grades have improved. They're looking at what students are involved in outside of the classroom. What if they've had a job? They're also realizing that, you know what, all the summer programs that students maybe were going to sign up for over the summer didn't happen either. And that's okay. Or maybe your senior is, maybe you have younger kids and you guys work. And so your senior has to watch those younger kids during COVID and help them with their classes. And those are all things that students can tell the college is about in their applications. And those are all great things because it demonstrates, again, their resilience, their dependability, their flexibility. Those are all things that colleges are going to be looking at. I did also see some questions about, there was a state ruling today that prohibits the UCs from using the SAT or the ACT. That just came off the presses while I was in that conference this morning. And the UCs haven't had a chance to make a real formal statement on that yet because they're still trying to figure out what that means. But they were already on that path. So my gut feeling is that, we just aren't going to see SATs or ACTs required by any of the UCs.
Casey, for those students who have not yet signed up for an individual meeting with us for this week or next, can you share or remind how they go about making that appointment?
Yeah, we sent them an email. And there's a sign up on the, if the students go into the class of 2021 Canvas folder, they'll see a senior, Rory, what is it called? Senior appointment?
Yeah, it's called senior appointments.
Senior appointment. They can go there and if they go into that assignment, they'll see all of our emails and all of our links to our appointment calendars. But we've also been, I think each of us have sent out a reminder email. So if they just do a search in their email, they should see a reminder email with those links as well. And we're going to continue to send out reminder emails.
There was also a question about eligibility for UC admission versus the actual admission itself. So do you want to address kind of what it means to be eligible, and then, the differences between that and selection for a given campus, and then also how campuses might redirect students who are eligible but not actually admitted to a given campus?
Okay. So minimum eligibility into a UC is a 3.0 GPA. And it's meeting certain, what I was talking about earlier, A through G requirements, certain core requirements. They need 4 years of English and 2 years of history and some things like that. Which again, we've been tracking that for them and helping them meet those all throughout the last 4 years. So if they can meet those minimum, now there's no SAT score, so we're not going to take that out of the mix. So if they meet those other two minimum eligibilities requirements, then they, and no, they have to be passing classes with a C- or higher, then they are guaranteed admission into a UC, but maybe not the UC of their choice. So there is a rule that if students, I think it's the top 9% of students in California are guaranteed a spot in a UC, but it may not be their first choice, because I can tell you that University of California, Berkeley has a lot higher requirements for them to enroll. I mean, they're going to be looking at students with a lot more than the minimum number of classes and the minimum C+ grade and the minimum of a 3.0 GPA. But if students in the top 9%, they will be admitted into a university in the UC system. Fortunately, our students are strong, so we tend to, many of us are way higher than that 9%. So we have a strong set of students, and they tend to, if they really want some kind of a UC and they've met those requirements, they'll find a home in one of them.
Okay, so we have another question regarding when does a student order a transcript versus the counselor sending it along with recommendations?
Yeah, so the transcripts this year are all going to be ordered through our website. And they're all ordered on the, if you go to the website under the student store, you'll see an ability there to order transcripts. Is that your question?
I think also the distinction between that and do students need to like request transcripts be sent along with for their college applications, or will those automatically be sent?
They will need to request them for anything that we're not doing a recommendation for. Actually, this year they request all of them because we don't have the envelope anymore. So they request all of their transcripts, any school that requires a transcript. So it's not any of the UCs and it's not any of the CSUs, but any other college that requires a transcript is ordered through our website.
Okay, there are AP score reports required?
They're not required, but what I would suggest is that you look at the individual colleges that your student is applying to. If it's a school that traditionally wanted subject tests, some schools are looking at AP scores instead of the subject tests. So if your student has them and wants to send them, they can, but they aren't usually required until after a student has been admitted to a college. Generally, what AP scores are used for is to help students waive certain classes when they get into a college. But this year they may have a dual purpose. So I would check with the individual colleges and the majors that your student's applying to.
Okay, and now we're going to shift to Naviance quickly. How does a student get a Naviance account? And then associated with that, how do students sign up for college rep visits and see when the college rep visits are?
Yeah, okay. So every new senior, I believe Lewis just this week added them and gave them a new account. The accounts are always going to have the student's email address as their username. And then if they don't know their password, they can just click change password. And if they are confused by that at all, they can reach out to their counselor and we can help support them with that. I forgot the rest of the questions. How can they, I wanted to say parents don't have their own account. I know in a lot of other things like Canvas and Aries, they do. In Naviance, they share their students' accounts. So you're not going to get your own login. To view college rep visits, Marie Rector is adding those almost daily. So we can't like post a list because it just keeps changing. So what we are going to do is the list is in Naviance under college visits. They can go up and look for them there. There's a tab. They're also, Marie's going to send out every 2 weeks, she's going to send out an update of all the college reps that are coming. So a student doesn't have to go into Naviance to see what's who's going to be coming in the next couple weeks. So you can plan ahead in that way. And again, if a student is in Naviance and they check a school as one of their favorites, they'll get an automatic email when that when that college rep comes to our campus to as a reminder to go listen to their Zoom meeting. And when we say come to campus, we're so using our words from the last many years, but what that means is that these reps are still going to visit our campus virtually. So they'll set up a Zoom meeting. It will only be students from our school site that are invited. And the students are, they log into the visit with their name. And the nice thing is that when these college reps that are kind of virtually visiting our campus and answering questions and from our students and sharing about their campuses, those same reps are often the ones that are reviewing your students' applications. So if they get a chance to see your student in their session with their camera on, really emphasize that they should put their camera on so these reps can see their faces. It's one more thing that's really going to help when it comes time to make the decision for when they're looking at their applications. Because I will say, I've been talking with a lot of students today that are applying to a lot of East Coast schools. And I've asked them, have you visited those campuses? Did you have a chance? And they said no. Well, and I get it. And, the college reps get it, that students aren't having the opportunity that they've had to go visit campuses. But one thing to really think about is these college reps are trying to decide, if we accept the student, are they going to come to our school? And if they're Michigan, and a student hasn't shown any hint of having been to Michigan, what are the chances of a California liking Michigan weather, right? I mean, they're not sure. So if your student has gone and logged in and done one of their virtual tours and has listened to one of the Michigan college rep come to our campus and speak, and your students logged into that presentation, those are two tips right there to the person reviewing their application that, yeah, this student at least knows something about our campus, about our weather, about our town, and the college and what it offers. And the chances are higher that they'll come if we enroll them. So a little more information you maybe wanted, but there you go. So we don't have a lot more time. I see a lot of questions. Are there other big ones that?
Yeah, Casey, a common theme or question has been, and I think it's very theoretical on our part, but if a number of students for this current fall semester, freshman class, if they've deferred or decided to take a gap year, how do you think that will affect admissions for our current seniors? Does it make it more competitive? Should it be the same? Will there be fewer spots, more spots? Like, how do we anticipate that playing out?
Right. So that's a good question. And I'm going to tell you my guess for an answer. Some families that we know from our own students that have decided to defer or to take kind of, to put off college for a year or so are doing a community college route now. And so that's 2 years usually, because they're going to do a 2-year and transfer versus, the UCs and the CSUs won't even take a student if they've only, once they've graduated, until they've become, they won't allow them to apply as like a second year freshman or something. They have to apply as a transfer. So those students actually aren't even going to be, looking back at, say, the UCs and the CSUs for a couple of years, and probably some of those other private schools. There are a lot of students that maybe deferred or took a gap year. So that what that means is that the colleges have more, they didn't get the enrollment that they necessarily were expecting. So they're going to need to increase their enrollment next year, right? Versus some years they end up with more kids than they planned, and so they have to decrease their enrollment in the following year. Well, we're going to be in the opposite case. So while I can't, absolutely predict, I think that it's either not going to hurt our kids or it actually might help our students, because there might actually be more spaces that colleges just need to fill. So there you go. And Lewis or Rory, if you have, or Tamara, if you have other thoughts. But,
yeah, I think a lot of it probably depends on, as the virus progresses, and then as the economy either improves, declines, or stays the same. I think that's going to have a big effect too. And I think the tougher the economic situation on a statewide or nationwide basis, I think that's generally going to lead students more towards public options closer to home, whether that's community college or 4-year. So, I could see where it could make things tighter in state. I don't know. I think it's hard to say. I think the colleges can also reallocate their resources too, and just have, more classes available, more sections available for freshmen next year, and just take in a much bigger freshman class, and then kind of get their revenue stream straightened out too if they're down this year. So it's hard to say.
Right, because remember, they're going to have fewer sophomores, so they're going to want those students on our campus, or on their campus. They're going to want to increase the numbers. So anyway, hopefully it'll be good news for our students.
Casey, I wanted to pivot back to the transcript part, and I think it was probably my poor wording of the question. If students are applying to colleges like out-of-state public colleges or private colleges that require a letter, or that require the transcript be submitted with their application, that'll be done by your counselor through Naviance.
Yes, but they all need to, exactly, but they still need to request the pay for it through our website. We'll send out, I tell you what, we'll send an email out on that one, because that's clearly confused. So we want to make sure everybody's clear on that. We'll send you an email on that one. Anything else? Does that get the bulk of them?
I think that handled most of the biggest themes that we have.
Awesome. Okay, well then we're gonna close it. And if you didn't get a question answered, you can absolutely email one of us. We're gonna look through it, and if there's some of the real common ones, we'll make sure to send that out in a separate email. And I just want to thank everybody for hanging with us tonight, and say good night.